So let's look at hash maps in Java. Now, a hash map is basically just a data structure that stores data in key value pairs. Think about arrays. Arrays store elements, and those elements each has an index. Now, here we have values, and each value has a key. The beauty here is that keys are not kind of like limited. You can use integers, you can use strings, as opposed to an array where each element has an index, and that index is supposed to be an int. And here, you don't follow any format. You can have jumbled keys. So let's look at that. The first thing we'll look at is we'll declare a hash map. Then we'll also look at how to put values in the hash map, then how to remove values, and then we have what happens when you write the same key twice. Then from there, we'll look at checking if key exists, checking if value exists, then we'll look at checking the size of the map. Let's get started. So I'll declare a hash map of names. Let's say we're storing names of students. Hash map, I have to specify the type of data for the key. So here I'm using integer. Then I also have to specify the value, like that. Then I'll give it a name. I'll say map, like that. Then you say new map, new hash map, like that. Simple as that. Now, how do we put values in this hash map? There's a method called put. So I'll just say map.put the key. I'll say 101. Then the value, a string, Alice. Then I'll say map.put another one, 102. Then we have Bob. So that's how you put values in a hash map. Now, let's look at removing values. But first, let me just do this. I'll say and add map here just to see what we have. So we have this, each key and the value it contains, right? So just remove one value using a function called map.remove, where I pass in the key. Let's say 1003. 103. Then I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it here. So before removing the value, we have this. And after removing the value, we have this. I'll put it back and I'll remove this line, these lines, right? The next thing is what happens when you put the same key twice. I'll just say map.put, and I'll say 101. Then I'll put John. Then I'll print out what has happened is you are overwriting. When you repeat the same key twice, you are overwriting the first key. That's what happens. Let's look at how to check if a key exists. There's a method called ContainsKey, map.ContainsKey. You pass in the key, for example, 101. It has to return true if the key exists and false if it doesn't exist. So we have true here, and let me just put any random number. Guess what happens? It prints false. Checking if value exists is just basically saying contains value. Very easy to understand. Contains value, and you pass in the value. So I'll pass in Alice. Prints back true. Then the last thing is, let's look at checking the size of the map. So here we use a method called size. So map.size, and it has to return the size of the map. Here we have 4 because we have 4 keys and 4 values. So there you have it. That's the intro on Hashmaps. I'll share more questions on Hashmaps, exam type of questions on the platform, and more explanation about Hashmaps on the platform. I'll see you in the next video.